Zara's long fingers deftly tapped the controls of the hydroponics bay, adjusting the nutrient levels and lighting to optimize the growth of the colony's food crops. It was one of the few tasks she took pride in during her captivity on the human colony ship. While her alien physiology gave her an advantage in the delicate work of cultivating plants, she couldn't help but feel a deep resentment at being little more than a glorified servant to these strange bipedal creatures. As she moved between the rows of leafy greens and vine-ripened tomatoes, Zara's amber eyes scanned the bay, taking in every detail. The hum of the ventilation system, the soft glow of the LED grow lights, the rhythmic dripping of the nutrient delivery lines. It all felt so foreign, yet somehow captivating. She had spent her entire life on her home planet of Siloth, never venturing beyond its lush alien forests. The idea of traveling to the stars, let alone being forcibly transported to a human colony ship, was unfathomable. A loud clang from the airlock startled Zara, causing her to nearly drop the delicate seedling she was transplanting. She turned to see a group of human soldiers marching into the bay, their heavy boots thudding against the metal grating of the floor. Leading them was Davos, the burly security officer who had overseen Zara's capture and recruitment to serve the colony. His sharp features and piercing gaze sent a shiver down Zara's spine. "Alien," Davos barked, his deep voice reverberating through the confined space. "The Council requires your presence." Zara straightened her posture, doing her best to maintain an air of dignified defiance. "What is it this time, human? Have I not met your quota of food production for the cycle?" Davos narrowed his eyes, the muscles in his jaw tightening. "You will address me as Officer Davos, and you will come with us. Now." Zara hesitated for a moment, weighing the consequences of challenging the burly human. She knew that any act of disobedience could result in severe punishment, or worse. Reluctantly, she placed the seedling back in its tray and followed Davos and his entourage out of the hydroponics bay. As they walked through the cramped corridors of the colony ship, Zara couldn't help but marvel at the sheer scale of the human's technological prowess. Massive fusion reactors hummed with power, providing energy to the various habitation modules, research labs, and industrial facilities that made up the heart of the colony. Bulkheads and airlocks lined the hallways, a constant reminder of the harsh environment that lay beyond the ship's protective shell. Zara had been on board for several Earth cycles now, but the vastness of the human's domain still dazzled her. On Siloth, her people lived in harmony with the natural world, building modest settlements that blended seamlessly into the lush, verdant landscape. The cold, sterile halls of the colony ship were a stark contrast to the warm, organic beauty of her homeworld. As they approached the council chambers, Zara felt a growing sense of unease. The human leaders had summoned her on numerous occasions, each time seeking her expertise or insight on some aspect of the colony's operations. While she took pride in being recognized for her knowledge, she also feared that the humans might one day decide her usefulness had run its course. The doors to the council chambers slid open, and Zara found herself face to face with the stern, impassive expressions of the colony's ruling body. She swallowed hard, trying to remain calm as Davos gestured for her to step forward. "Alien," spoke the lead councillor, a stately woman with greying hair and piercing blue eyes. "We have a matter of great importance to discuss with you." Zara steeled herself, preparing for the worst. "I am listening, councillor." The woman clasped her hands together, her gaze fixed on Zara. "As you know, our colony is facing grave challenges. Our food reserves are dwindling and our terraforming efforts have stalled. We find ourselves in desperate need of your expertise." Zara blinked, surprised by the councillor's words. I I do not understand. How can I be of assistance? We need you to lead a mission to the surface of the planet, the counselor continued. Your knowledge of xenobotany and alien ecosystems could be the key to unlocking the agricultural potential of this world. Zara felt a surge of hope rise within her. A chance to set foot on the surface of this new world, to explore its untamed wilderness. It was a tantalizing prospect. But then the harsh reality of her captive status came crashing back. And what guaranteed do I have that you will not simply strand me there, or worse? Zara asked, narrowing her eyes. I am, after all, merely a slave to your will. You have my word, alien. If you succeed in this mission, you will be granted a level of freedom within the colony. The Council is willing to negotiate the terms of your service. Zara considered the officer's words, weighing the risks and potential rewards. On one hand, she longed for the chance to explore the surface of this new world, to put her skills to use in a meaningful way. On the other, she couldn't shake the nagging suspicion that the humans had ulterior motives. Finally, with a resigned sigh, Zara nodded. Very well, I will do as you ask. But know this, humans, I am no slave. I am Zara of Siloth, and I will not be treated as mere property. DeVos's lips curled into the faintest of smiles. We shall see, alien. We shall see. The shuttle's descent through the alien atmosphere was a turbulent one, buffeted by fierce winds and violent updrafts. Zara gripped the armrests of her seat, her knuckles turning white as she peered out the view screen at the rapidly approaching landscape below. The planet's surface was a vast, rugged expanse of towering mountains and sweeping grasslands, dominated by a primordial-looking flora unlike anything Zara had seen on her own homeworld. As the shuttle touched down in a shallow valley, she could already feel the pull of the alien gravity and the sting of the unfamiliar air on her skin. Beside Zara, Officer Devos secured his combat harness, his expression focused and determined. Remember, alien, he said sternly. This mission is of the utmost importance to the colony. You will obey my orders without question, and you will not attempt any acts of escape or defiance. Is that understood? Zara met his gaze evenly, her amber eyes narrowing. I have given you my word, human. I will do what is necessary to ensure the success of this endeavor. Beyond that, I make no promises. DeVos's jaw tightened, but he nodded in acknowledgement. Very well, let's move out. As the hatch of the shuttle swung open, Zara felt a surge of adrenaline coursing through her veins. The air was thick and humid, laden with the scent of unfamiliar flora. Towering, fern-like trees lined the valley, their fronds rustling in the gentle breeze. In the distance, she could hear the faint call of alien creatures, their voices unlike anything she had ever encountered. DeVos and his team of heavily armed human soldiers fanned out, their weapons at the ready. Zara followed closely behind, her senses heightened as she took in every detail of this strange new world. It was both exhilarating and terrifying, a far cry from the lush, familiar forests of Siloth. As they made their way through the valley, Zara's gaze was drawn to the peculiar vegetation that carpeted the ground. Vibrant, fleshy plants with broad, waxy leaves seemed to pulse with a hidden energy, as if aware of their presence. She knelt down, gently running her fingers over the nearest specimen, marveling at its alien texture. Fascinating, she murmured, her brow furrowed in concentration. This plant appears to be some kind of symbiotic relationship between a fungus and a photosynthetic organism. The energy transfer is unlike anything I've ever seen. DeVos paused, turning back to regard Zara with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. Can it be harvested? Used for food or other purposes? Zara shook her head slowly. I'm not certain. This ecosystem is vastly different from anything I've encountered. We would need to conduct extensive research and experimentation to determine its potential uses. The officer's brow furrowed, and he gestured for the team to continue moving. Then we keep going. We don't have time for idle exploration. The colony's survival depends on us finding a viable food source, and quickly. Zara felt a pang of frustration, but she knew better than to argue. Davos was right. The stakes were too high for her to indulge her scientific curiosity. With a sigh, she rose to her feet and hurried to catch up with the human soldiers. As they pressed deeper into the alien wilderness, Zara couldn't help but notice the subtle ways in which the landscape seemed to react to their presence. The rustling of the fronds grew slightly more frenzied, and she caught glimpses of movement in the undergrowth that disappeared as soon as she tried to focus on it. "Davos," she called out, keeping her voice low. "I sense that we are being observed. The flora and fauna of this world seem to be aware of our intrusion." The officer's grip tightened on his weapon, his eyes scanning the surrounding foliage. "Noted. Keep your guard up. We don't know what other dangers might be lurking out there." Zara nodded, her own senses heightened as she scanned their surroundings. The deeper they ventured into the alien wilderness, the more she became aware of the complex, interconnected web of life that thrummed with a palpable energy. It was both fascinating and unsettling, a stark reminder of just how little the humans truly understood about this world. The survey team pressed on, moving cautiously through the alien landscape as they searched for any signs of viable agricultural resources. Zara trailed behind the heavily armed human soldiers, her sharp eyes scanning the foliage for clues about the planet's ecology. As they navigated the winding paths, Zara couldn't help but marvel at the sheer diversity of the flora and fauna that surrounded them. Towering, fern-like trees gave way to sprawling fungal-like growths that seemed to pulse with an almost sentient energy. Alien creatures, their forms unlike anything she had ever encountered, darted between the undergrowth, their cries echoing through the still air. Davos, the burly security officer who had brought Zara to this world, remained vigilant, his weapon at the ready. Zara could sense the tension in his posture, the way his gaze constantly swept back and forth, searching for any potential threats. Suddenly, the officer raised a hand, signaling the team to halt. "Hold up," he barked, his eyes narrowing as he peered into the distance. "I think I spot some kind of settlement up ahead." Zara followed his gaze, her brow furrowing as she, too, caught a glimpse of a strange, angular structure emerging from the foliage. It seemed to be constructed from a material unlike anything she had seen before, a honeycomb-like lattice that shimmered in the alien sunlight. "What do you make of it, alien?" Davos asked, turning to Zara with an appraising gaze. Zara hesitated for a moment, her mind racing as she tried to process the implications of this discovery. I'm not certain," she admitted, her voice tinged with uncertainty. "The architecture is unlike anything I've encountered, both on my own world and in the human colonies I've observed. It's possible that this is the dwelling place of an indigenous intelligent species." Davos's jaw tightened, and Zara could see the wheels turning in his mind. Hostile or not, we need to investigate. If there's a chance this could be a source of food or other resources, the colony can't afford to ignore it. He turned to the soldiers, barking out a series of orders. "Secure the perimeter and prepare for possible contact. I want eyes on that structure, but hold your fire unless provoked." The team quickly moved to obey, fanning out and taking up positions around the strange, alien structure. Zara watched with a growing sense of unease, her mind racing with 1,000 questions. What manner of beings could have constructed such a remarkable dwelling? And what would their reaction be to the sudden arrival of these human interlopers? As the soldiers moved closer, Zara couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy for the unknown inhabitants of this world. She'd have seen firsthand the devastating impact that human colonization could have on indigenous populations, both on her own planet and in the settlements she had observed during her captivity. The thought of these alien beings being subjugated or displaced filled her with a sense of dread. Davos, seemingly oblivious to Zara's internal turmoil, gestured for her to follow as he approached the structure. "Come on, alien. Let's see what we can find." Zara hesitated for a moment, her instinct to protect the unknown inhabitants warring with her desire to cooperate and perhaps earn a measure of freedom. Ultimately, she knew that she had little choice but to comply, and with a resigned sigh, she followed the human officer. As they drew closer, Zara couldn't help but marvel at the intricate design of the structure. The honeycomb-like lattice seemed to be composed of a material that was both lightweight and incredibly durable, and the way it was integrated with the surrounding foliage was nothing short of breathtaking. Davos, for his part, seemed equally captivated, his eyes narrowing as he studied the architecture. "Fascinating," he murmured, reaching out to gently touch the surface of the structure. Suddenly, a shimmering field of energy flickered to life, coursing along the lattice and creating a barrier that separated Davos from the rest of the team. Zara's eyes widened in alarm, and she instinctively stepped forward, reaching out to the human officer. "Davos, are you all right?" she called out, her voice tinged with genuine concern. The officer's expression was one of surprise and confusion, but he quickly regained his composure, his gaze fixing on Zara with a newfound sense of curiosity. "I'm fine, alien," he replied, his voice low and contemplative. "This is unexpected." Zara opened her mouth to respond, but before she could speak, a strange, undulating sound echoed through the trees, drawing the attention of both the human soldiers and the alien woman. Slowly, a multitude of bizarre insectoid creatures emerged from the undergrowth, their compound eyes glittering in the alien sunlight. Davos immediately raised his weapon, his expression hardening. "Hostile contact. Take cover and prepare to engage." The soldiers opened fire, their weapons unleashing a barrage of energy bolts that cut through the air. Zara, caught in the middle of the chaos, felt a surge of panic rising within her. She knew that these alien beings were likely simply defending their home, not understanding the threat posed by the human invaders. "Stop," she cried out, her voice desperate. "They mean you no harm. Please, we must find a way to communicate." But her pleas fell on deaf ears as the battle raged on, the strange insectoid creatures responding in kind with strange bursts of energy that deflected the human weapons. Zara watched in horror, her heart pounding as she realized that this encounter could lead to the destruction of an entire civilization. As the fighting continued, Zara's gaze was drawn back to Davos, who remained trapped behind the shimmering energy field. The officer's expression was one of focused determination, but beneath the surface, Zara could sense a glimmer of something else, a curiosity, a desire to understand. In that moment, Zara knew that their fates were inextricably intertwined, and that the outcome of this encounter could change the course of both their lives forever. The chaos of battle raged around Zara as the human soldiers exchanged fire with the strange, insectoid creatures that had emerged from the alien foliage. Energy bolts crackled through the air, narrowly missing the transfixed alien woman as she stood frozen, her mind racing. Her gaze was drawn to Davos, the burly human officer trapped behind the shimmering energy field that had inexplicably sprung up. His expression was a mix of determination and curiosity, his eyes fixed on the creatures as they responded to the human aggression. Zara knew she had to act, to somehow stop the violence before it escalated further. These alien beings were simply defending their home, not understanding the threat posed by the human invaders. If the fighting continued, it could lead to the destruction of an entire civilization. Mustering her courage, Zara stepped forward, raising her hands in a gesture of peace. "Stop," she cried out, her voice cutting through the din of battle. "We mean you no harm. Please, let us communicate." The insectoid creatures paused, their compound eyes swiveling to fix on the alien woman. Zara held her ground, her heart pounding in her chest, as she reached out with her mind, trying to establish some form of contact. To her surprise, she felt a response, a faint, pulsing consciousness that seemed to reverberate through her very being. It was unlike anything she had ever experienced, a foreign yet strangely familiar connection. "We mean you no harm," Zara repeated, projecting her thoughts as clearly as she could. "We have come to this world seeking resources, but we do not wish to encroach upon your home or your way of life." The creatures seemed to hesitate, their movements slowing as they processed her words. Zara could feel their uncertainty, their wariness, but there was also a glimmer of curiosity, a desire to understand. "Please," Zara continued, emboldened by their reaction. "Let us talk, and perhaps we can find a way to coexist peacefully on this world." Time seemed to slow as the two sides regarded one another, the tension palpable. Zara could feel the human soldiers' confusion, their fingers twitching on their triggers as they waited for the next move. And then, to her relief, the insectoid creatures began to withdraw, their chittering voices echoing through the trees as they disappeared back into the undergrowth. Zara let out a breath she didn't realize she had been holding, her shoulders sagging with relief. Davos, still trapped behind the shimmering energy field, regarded Zara with a mixture of awe and suspicion. "How did you do that, alien?" he asked, his voice low and intense. Zara turned to face him, her expression solemn. I'm not entirely sure," she admitted, "but I believe I was able to establish some form of telepathic communication with them. They are a sentient species, and they were simply defending their home from what they perceived as an invasion." Davos's brow furrowed, his gaze searching Zara's face. "And you convinced them to stand down, just like that?" Zara nodded, feeling a glimmer of pride. "Yes, I appealed to their desire for peace and understanding. They are willing to talk, to find a way for us to coexist on this world." The human officer's expression darkened, and Zara could sense the wheels turning in his mind. "You realize the implications of this, don't you?" he said, his voice low and urgent. "If we can establish peaceful relations with these creatures, it could change the entire dynamic of the colony. We might be able to access resources and knowledge we never could have imagined." Zara felt a twinge of unease at the calculating look in Davos's eyes. "I understand," she said cautiously, "but I also know that the humans have a history of subjugating and exploiting indigenous populations. I will not be a party to that, no matter the potential benefits." Davos's jaw tightened, and for a moment, Zara feared that he would lash out in anger. But then, to her surprise, his expression softened, and he let out a long, weary sigh. "You're right, alien," he admitted, his voice tinged with resignation. "We've made too many mistakes in the past, and I don't want to see that happen again. If there's a chance to forge a genuine alliance with these creatures, then I'm willing to explore it." Zara blinked, taken aback by the officer's sudden change of heart. "You're willing to listen?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Davos nodded, his gaze fixed on the alien woman. "Yes, and I think it's time we started to see each other as something more than just human and alien. Zara felt a surge of hope rise within her, and she couldn't help but offer the human officer a tentative smile. Then, perhaps we can start by addressing each other by name. I am Zara, of the planet Tyloth. Davos's lips curled into the faintest of smiles. Zara, he said, testing the name on his tongue, it's a pleasure to meet you. As the two unlikely allies stood facing each other, the world around them seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see what would unfold. Zara knew that the path ahead would not be an easy one, but for the first time since her capture, she felt a glimmer of optimism. A sense that perhaps, just maybe, she and the humans could find a way to coexist, and even forge a lasting bond. In the aftermath of the tense confrontation, Zara and Davos worked together to establish a tentative rapport with the alien creatures that had emerged from the foliage. Though the communication was halting and rudimentary at first, Zara's unique telepathic abilities allowed her to slowly bridge the gap between the two species. As she sat cross-legged on the ground, her eyes closed in concentration, Zara could feel the pulsing consciousness of the insectoid beings reaching out to her. Their thoughts were a strange, alien tapestry of sensations and emotions, woven together in a way that defied human understanding. But Zara was determined to unravel the mysteries that lay within, to find a common ground that could form the foundation for lasting peace. Beside her, Davos watched with a mixture of awe and trepidation, his hand never straying far from the sidearm holstered at his hip. The human soldiers, too, maintained a wary vigilance, their weapons at the ready in case the tenuous truce were to shatter. They call themselves the Xendar, Zara murmured, her eyes still closed. They are the indigenous stewards of this world, having lived in harmony with its delicate ecosystems for millennia. Davos's brow furrowed as he processed this information, and they'd never encountered other intelligent life before. Zara shook her head slowly. No, they are a deeply insular species, content to exist within the confines of their own domain. Our arrival here has unsettled them, to say the least. The officer let out a heavy sigh, running a hand through his short, greying hair. Damn, that's going to complicate things. We can't exactly just pack up and leave, not with the colony's survival at stake. Zara opened her eyes, her amber gaze meeting Davos's. Then we must find a way to coexist, she said, her voice laced with determination. The Xendar are willing to hear us out, to explore the possibility of a peaceful arrangement. But we must approach this with great care and respect. Davos nodded slowly, his expression thoughtful. Agreed. If we can establish a mutually beneficial relationship with these Xendar, it could be the key to securing the colony's future, and perhaps even more. Zara felt a flicker of hope at his words, but she couldn't help but feel a twinge of apprehension. She knew all too well the human propensity for exploitation and subjugation, and she feared that even with the best of intentions, the colony's leaders might still be tempted to take advantage of the Xendar's resources. Davos, she said, her voice low and serious, I need your assurance that the humans will not attempt to conquer or subjugate the Xendar. Their way of life and their homeworld must be respected, no matter the potential benefits to the colony. The officer regarded her steadily, his gaze unflinching. You have my word, Zara. I will do everything in my power to ensure that our dealings with the Xendar are built on a foundation of mutual understanding and respect. No exploitation, no subjugation, just cooperation. Zara searched his face, looking for any hint of deception, but all she saw was a resolute determination. Slowly, she nodded, her own expression softening. Very well. Then let us proceed, and see where this path leads us. As the hours ticked by, Zara spent long, arduous sessions in deep meditation, her mind delving ever deeper into the alien consciousness of the Tsendar. Little by little, she began to piece together a picture of their society, their values, and their relationship with the world they called home. The Tsendar were a highly adaptable and resilient species, their bodies and their minds attuned to the ebb and flow of the planet's intricate ecosystems. They lived in sprawling hive-like structures that were seamlessly integrated with the surrounding foliage, drawing sustenance and energy from the very land itself. But beneath their seemingly tranquil existence, Zara could sense a deep-rooted wariness, a long-held mistrust of outsiders that had been forged through countless generations of isolation. The arrival of the human colony had shaken them to their core, and Zara knew that she and Davos would have to tread carefully if they hoped to earn the Tsendar's trust. As she relayed this information to the human officer, Davos listened intently, his brow furrowed in concentration. "So they're not just simple primitive creatures," he murmured, more to himself than to Zara. "They're a sophisticated, highly evolved society, with their own complex social structures and cultural traditions." Zara nodded, a faint smile tugging at the corners of her lips. "Precisely. And they are quite curious about us as well. They have never encountered a species like the humans before, and they are eager to learn more." Devos's expression softened, and he reached out to place a hand on Zara's shoulder. "Then we'll work together to bridge that gap, Zara. I may not be able to speak to them directly, but I'll do everything in my power to ensure that our interactions are mutually beneficial and respectful." Zara felt a surge of gratitude, and she couldn't help but marvel at the transformation she had witnessed in the human officer. Where once there had been only suspicion and hostility, now there was a glimmer of understanding, a willingness to engage and collaborate. As they turned their attention back to the task at hand, Zara knew that the road ahead would not be an easy one. But with Davos by her side, and that Zendar's cautious trust, she couldn't help but feel a sense of cautious optimism. Perhaps, just perhaps, a brighter future lay ahead, one where humanity and the alien world could coexist in harmony. As the days turned into weeks, Zara and Davos worked tirelessly to establish a rapport between the human colony and the enigmatic Tsendar. It was a delicate, painstaking process, fraught with cultural misunderstandings and language barriers, but the two unlikely allies were determined to forge a lasting alliance. Through Zara's unique telepathic abilities, she was able to serve as a bridge between the two species, translating their thoughts and emotions into a form that both could comprehend. Davos, for his part, proved to be a surprisingly adept negotiator, his military background lending him a keen understanding of the importance of diplomacy and compromise. Together, they navigated the complex web of Tsendar society, learning about their intricate social structures, their reverence for the natural world, and their deep-rooted mistrust of outsiders. Slowly but surely, they began to earn the trust of the Tsendar elders, who had initially viewed the human presence as a grave threat to their way of life. But even as Zara and Davos made progress, they were aware of the growing tensions within the human colony itself. Word of the alien society had spread, and there were those among the settlers who saw the Tsendar as little more than a resource to be exploited. One such individual was the colony's chief administrator, a hard-nosed bureaucrat named Simmons. He had little patience for Zara and Davos's diplomatic overtures, viewing the Tsendar as little more than a means to an end. "We're facing a critical food shortage, Davos," Simmons barked, his beady eyes narrowing as he glared at the security officer. "If these Tsendar, or whatever they're called, have the resources we need, then we need to secure access to them, by any means necessary." Davos's jaw tightened, and Zara could sense the conflict raging within him. He had made a promise to Zara, a vow to ensure that the Thendar's way of life would be respected. But now, faced with the stark reality of the colony's survival, he found himself torn. "Sir, we've made significant progress in establishing a cooperative relationship with the Thendar," Davos said carefully. "If we move too aggressively, we risk jeopardizing that delicate balance. We need to tread carefully to ensure that any agreement we reach is mutually beneficial." Simmons scoffed, waving a dismissive hand. "Careful? We don't have the luxury of being careful, Davos. The colony is on the brink of collapse, and we need solutions, not diplomatic niceties." Zara watched the exchange with a growing sense of unease, her mind racing as she tried to devise a solution. She knew that if Simmons had his way, that Thendar would be subjected to the same kind of exploitation and subjugation that had plagued so many other indigenous populations throughout human history. And so, with a deep breath, she stepped forward, her amber eyes meeting Simmons' gaze with a steely determination. "Administrator Simmons," she began, her voice calm and measured. "I understand the gravity of the situation facing your colony, but I implore you to reconsider your approach. The Thendar are a sophisticated, highly evolved society, with a deep understanding of this world and its resources. If we work together, in a spirit of mutual respect and cooperation, I believe we can find a solution that benefits us all." Simmons regarded her with a barely concealed sneer. "Mutual respect? This is about survival, alien. The Thendar can either help us or get out of our way." Zara felt a surge of anger, but she forced herself to remain composed. "That is where you are mistaken, Administrator. The Thendar are the rightful stewards of this world, and they have no obligation to aid us. If we try to take what is theirs by force, we risk not only jeopardizing our tenuous alliance, but also incurring the wrath of a species far more advanced and capable than we can possibly imagine." The administrator's eyes narrowed, and for a moment, Zara feared that he would lash out. But then, to her surprise, Davos stepped forward, his expression grave. "Zara is right, Simmons," the security officer said, his voice firm. "We've come too far to throw it all away now. If we force the Thendar into submission, we risk not only our chances of securing the resources we need, but the very future of this colony. I won't be a party to that, even if it means disobeying a direct order." Simmons' face darkened, and Zara could see the fury burning in his eyes. "You're both fools," he spat. "This colony's survival hangs by a thread, and you're willing to jeopardize it all for the sake of a bunch of alien bugs." Davos stood his ground, his jaw set in a determined line. "I've made my decision, Simmons. If you want to try and circumvent our agreement with the Thendar, you'll have to go through me first." For a long, tense moment, the three of them stood there, the air thick with the weight of their confrontation. And then, finally, Simmons let out a frustrated growl and turned on his heel, storming out of the room. Zara let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding, her gaze fixed on Davos. "Thank you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't know if you would stand with me." Davos met her eyes, a faint smile tugging at the corners of his lips. "I gave you my word, Zara, and I intend to keep it, no matter what." In that moment, Zara felt a surge of affection and respect for the human officer, a bond that transcended the boundaries of their vastly different worlds. They were two unlikely allies, forged in the crucible of this alien landscape, and she knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The confrontation with Administrator Simmons had left Zara and Davos on high alert, keenly aware that the fragile alliance they had worked so hard to build with the Thendar was now under threat. Though they had managed to stave off Simmons' attempts to force the issue, they knew that the underlying tensions within the human colony would not simply disappear. As they returned to the Tsendar settlement, Zara could feel the pulsing hum of their alien consciousness, a mixture of curiosity, wariness, and a newfound respect. Through her telepathic link, she'd have become deeply attuned to the intricate web of their society, and she understood just how high the stakes were. The Tsendar elders have sensed the discord within your colony, Zara said, her voice low and grave. They are concerned that the delicate balance we have achieved may be in jeopardy. Davos nodded, his brow furrowed in thought. I can't say I blame them. Simmons is a stubborn bastard, and I have no doubt he'll try to undermine our efforts if he gets the chance. Zara's gaze flickered towards the towering hive-like structures that dotted the landscape, her mind racing. Then we must act quickly, before the situation deteriorates further. The Tsendar are willing to consider a more formal alliance, but they will need assurances that their way of life will be protected. The human officer's expression hardened, and Zara could see the determination in his eyes. You have my word, Zara. I'll do everything in my power to ensure that the colony respects the Tsendar's sovereignty and their right to self-determination. Zara nodded, feeling a surge of hope. Then let us move forward and see if we can forge a mutually beneficial arrangement. Over the next few days, Zara and Davos worked tirelessly, shuttling between the human colony and the Tsendar settlement, negotiating the terms of a proposed alliance. It was a delicate and often frustrating process, with both sides wary of the other's true intentions. But Zara's unwavering commitment to protecting the Tsendar's way of life, coupled with Davos's steadfast insistence on a fair and equitable agreement, slowly began to bear fruit. The elders, once so mistrustful of the human presence, started to open up, to see the possibility of a future where their two worlds could coexist in harmony. And then, in a surprise twist, the Tsendar made a bold proposal. They would share their intimate knowledge of the planet's ecosystems and resources, in exchange for the humans' advanced technology and scientific expertise. It was a mutually beneficial arrangement that promised to transform both societies in unimaginable ways. As word of the proposed alliance spread through the human colony, reactions were decidedly mixed. While many were eager to embrace the opportunity and the potential it held, there were also those who viewed it as a threat to their own power and influence. Chief among them was Administrator Simmons, who had never forgiven Zara and Davos for their defiance. He saw the Tsendar alliance as a challenge to his authority, a betrayal of the colony's original mission. This is madness. Simmons raged, his face flushed with anger. We're handing over our technological superiority to a bunch of alien primitives, all for the sake of a few resources. This is a disaster waiting to happen. Davos stood his ground, his expression unwavering. The Tsendar are far from primitive, Simmons. They possess a deep, intimate understanding of this world that we could never hope to match. And their willingness to share that knowledge is a rare and invaluable opportunity. Simmons sneered, his eyes narrowing. And what about the colony's security? How can we be sure these Tsendar won't turn around and use our own technology against us? Zara stepped forward, her amber eyes blazing with conviction. The Tsendar are a peaceful people, Simmons. They have no desire for conquest or domination. All they seek is to maintain the delicate balance of their homeworld and to live in harmony with the other inhabitants. Harmony. Simmons scoffed. This isn't some utopian fantasy, alien. This is the real world, and we can't afford to be naive. If we don't take control of the situation, we risk losing everything we've worked for. Davos's jaw tightened, and Zara could see the tension radiating from him. That's where you're wrong, Simmons. The Tsendar Alliance isn't about control. It's about cooperation, about building a future where both our peoples can thrive. And if you can't see that, then you're the one who's lost touch with reality. The confrontation reached a fever pitch, with Simmons and his supporters rallying against the proposed alliance. But Zara and Davos refused to back down, their conviction unwavering. They had come too far to let narrow-minded bureaucrats jeopardize the fragile peace they had worked so hard to achieve. And as the debate raged on, something remarkable began to happen. The Xendar, once content to remain in the shadows, began to emerge, their voices joining the chorus of support for the alliance. They spoke with a quiet confidence, their words carrying a weight and authority that commanded respect. Slowly but surely, the tide began to turn, as more and more of the human colonists came to see the value in the Tsendar's knowledge and the benefits of a true partnership. Simmons and his allies found themselves increasingly isolated, their objections drowned out by the growing chorus of support. Zara watched the unfolding events with a mixture of pride and relief. The Tsendar were no longer merely passive subjects, but active participants in shaping their own destiny. And she knew that, together with Davos, they had played a crucial role in empowering this remarkable transformation. As the final details of the alliance were hammered out, Zara couldn't help but feel a sense of optimism, a glimmer of hope for a future where humanity and the alien world could coexist in harmony. It was a testament to the power of understanding, cooperation, and the willingness to see beyond the boundaries of one's own experience. And as she stood beside Davos, their eyes meeting in a silent acknowledgement of all they had accomplished, Zara knew that this was only the beginning. The final negotiations of the Tsendar-Human alliance were arduous and complex, with both sides carefully weighing the implications and potential consequences of their agreement. Zara and Davos remained steadfast in their commitment to ensuring a fair and equitable arrangement, buoyed by the growing support of the human colonists who had come to recognize the value of the Tsendar's knowledge and expertise. Despite the objections of the stubborn and short-sighted Administrator Simmons, the majority of the colony's leadership recognized the potential benefits of the alliance, not just in terms of securing critical resources, but in the broader implications for scientific and cultural exchange. As the details were hammered out, Zara marveled at the transformation she witnessed in the human colonists' attitudes towards the Tsendar. Where there had once been fear and suspicion, now there was a growing sense of wonder and respect. The alien beings, once viewed as little more than primitive bugs, were now seen as sophisticated, highly evolved stewards of this world, possessing a profound understanding of its delicate ecosystems. And as the Tsendar elders shared their knowledge, imparting centuries' worth of accumulated wisdom, the humans were humbled by the realization of just how little they truly knew about this alien landscape. Their technological prowess, once seen as a mark of superiority, paled in comparison to the Tsendar's innate mastery of their environment. Zara could feel a shift in the very air, a palpable energy that seemed to hum with the promise of a new era, one where humanity and the Tsendar would forge a partnership built on mutual respect, understanding, and a shared commitment to the preservation of this world. As the final terms of the alliance were agreed upon, Zara and Davos stood side by side, their eyes shining with a sense of pride and accomplishment. They had come so far, from adversaries to allies, and Zara couldn't help but marvel at the transformation that had taken place. "We did it," Davos murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. "Against all odds, we've managed to bridge the gap between our two worlds." Zara nodded, a faint smile tugging at the corners of her lips. "Yes, Davos. And I couldn't have done it without you, my friend." The human officer reached out, placing a hand on Zara's shoulder in a gesture of camaraderie. "No, Zara, we did this together. You and I, we're in this for the long haul, no matter what challenges lie ahead." Zara felt a surge of affection for the man who had once been her captor, but who had now become an invaluable ally and trusted companion. Their journey had been a turbulent one, marked by moments of doubt, fear, and even outright confrontation. But through it all, they had forged an unbreakable bond, one that transcended the boundaries of their respective worlds. As the Zendar and human leaders came together to sign the historic alliance, Zara could feel the weight of the moment pressing down upon her. This was no mere trade agreement or resource extraction deal. It was a pact that would shape the future of both civilizations, a testament to the power of cooperation and understanding. And as she watched the proceedings unfold, Zara couldn't help but reflect on how far she had come, from a captive alien woman to a respected, influential figure within the human colony. Her voice, once silenced, now carried weight and authority, commanding the attention of both her own people and the humans who had once sought to subjugate her. It was a remarkable transformation, one that filled her with a sense of pride and purpose. She knew that the road ahead would not be an easy one, that there would be challenges and setbacks to overcome. But with Davos by her side, and its Endar's unwavering support, she felt confident that they could weather any storm. As the ceremony drew to a close, Zara turned to Davos, her eyes shining with a newfound determination. "This is only the beginning, my friend," she said, her voice filled with conviction. "With this alliance, we have the opportunity to reshape the very future of our two civilizations. To create a world where humanity and its Endar can coexist in harmony, each learning from the other and growing together in ways we never thought possible." Davos nodded, his expression mirroring Zara's own. "I couldn't agree more. And I'm honored to be a part of it, Zara. To be your partner in this journey, and to see where it takes us." The two of them stood there, side by side, as the representatives of the Zendar and the human colony exchanged final handshakes and congratulations. And in that moment, Zara felt a sense of peace and purpose that she had never known before. For so long, she'd have been a captive, a mere pawn in the grand scheme of human colonization. But now she was a force to be reckoned with, a voice of reason and understanding in a universe that had once seemed so alien and hostile. And as she looked towards the horizon, Zara couldn't help but feel a sense of hope. Hope for a future where the boundaries between their worlds would be forever blurred, where humanity and its Endar would walk side by side, united in their quest for knowledge, prosperity, and the preservation of this remarkable, awe-inspiring world.